Welcome, everyone, to our Bookaccino live presentation. We have so many titles to share with you. I tell you that reading this year has been really fabulous, and we're looking forward to sharing with you what we seek upcoming the next 4 weeks and beyond. Okay, first, one of our favorite things, and we share this with publishers who then share it with authors. These were your top picks from February's presentation. 3 Days in June by Ann Tyler. The Queens of Crime by Marie Benedict, which was one of my bets on selections. The Maid's Secret by Nita Prose, which I've been reading and enjoying. The Boxcar Librarian, can't see who it's by right now, my thing's over it. We All Live Here by Jojo Moyes. The Dressmakers of London by Julia Kelly, and Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. The last is my latest Bets on selection. We're going to have an interview with her going up on Friday. I am crazy about this book, people, crazy about it. It's going to be a Bets on. If you didn't read the review last week in the newsletter, go back and read it because you're going to see why I'm so excited about the book. And like I said, the interview will be up on Friday. So here we go. Start with fiction. Susan Mallory. We all need beach vibes. I mean, seriously, we changed the clocks. We need beach vibes, seriously. So, Susan's got for us coming on March 18th. While Beth is proud of her Malibu beach shop, Surf Sandwiches, she's even prouder of her charismatic brother, Rick, who rose from foster care through surgical residency. She makes subs, he saves lives. Life takes a turn for the happy after she finds out that Rick is dating her new best friend, Jana. And then Jana's handsome brother adds even more sparkle to Beth's days and nights. But when she catches Rick with another woman, her visions of an idyllic family future disappear in one awful instant. Either she betrays her brother, or she keeps a secret and risks losing the man she loves and her best friend. So there we've got beach bribes. We've got these surfboards like up on the beach. We're all ready. I mean, seriously, no more snow. Next, we've got The Love We Found by Jill Santopolo. This is a follow-up to her last book. The Love We Found is the long-awaited sequel to the Reese Book Club pick and New York Times bestseller, A Light We Lost. How many of you remember that book? Also coming on March 18th. It's been nearly 10 years since Gabe has been gone when Lucy finds a tiny piece of paper in a box of his old photos, an address in Rome. Why did Gabe keep it? And what was he doing in Italy? Lucy buys a last-minute plane ticket. Impulsive, but Gabe always brought that out in her. Lucy's journey to uncover Gabe's secrets leads her to Dr. Dax Armstrong, a New Yorker in Italy working with an NGO. His broad shoulders and sad, intense eyes draw Lucy in. His touch reaches her in a forgotten place, one that no one has been near since Gabe. But her old life awaits, along with an earth-shattering decision whether she and Darren should tell their son Samuel the truth about his father. How can Lucy move forward while she's rooted in the past? Fate broke her heart once. Can finding new love set her free? So there you've got the follow-up to the Light We Lost. If you haven't read that yet, well, you have time, and then you can read The Love We Found. Here we go. Next, we've got Oh Sinners by Nicole Cuffey, also coming March 18th. Farouk Daidi, a young journalist processing the recent death of his father, who was a devout Muslim, takes the opportunity to embed himself in a cult called The Nameless. Based in California redwoods and shepherded by an enigmatic Vietnam War veteran named Odo, The Nameless adhere to 18 utterances, including teachings such as all suffering is distortion and see only beauty. Farouk, skeptical but committed to unraveling the mystery of the Nameless, extends his stay over months as he gets deeper into the cult's inner workings and alluring teachings. But as he gets closer to Odo, Farouk finds himself beginning to unravel, forced to come to terms with memories that he has been running from while trying to resist Odo's spell. So there we've got Oh Sinners. Next, we've got Tilts. I should do this one on its side by Emma Patty. This is coming on March 25th. Annie is 9 months pregnant and shopping for a crib at IKEA when a massive earthquake hits Portland, Oregon. There's no way to reach her husband, no phone or money, and a city left in chaos. There's nothing to do but walk. Making her way across the wreckage of Portland, Annie experiences human desperation and kindness, strangers offering help, a riot at a grocery store, and an unlikely friendship with a young mother. As she walks, Annie reflects on her struggling marriage, her disappointing career, and her anxiety about having a baby. If she can just make it home, she's determined to change her life. So there you go. And there is a quote on top from Jessica Knoll. Every gorgeous page pulses with humor, heartbreak, and the horror of human behavior, a smashing debut. I heard Emma speak about this book, and I'm looking forward to reading it and perhaps having a conversation about her with it as well, with her about it as well. Okay. Next, we've got Twist by Colin McCann, and you know him as a National Book Award winning author of Let the Great World Spin, coming on March 25th. Anthony Fennell, an Irish journalist and playwright, is assigned to cover the underwater cables that carry the world's information, the sum of human existence. Words, images, transactions, memes, voices, viruses travel through tiny fiber optic tubes. But sometimes the tubes break at an unfathomable depth. Fennell's journey brings him to the west coast of Africa, where he uncovers a story about the raw human labor behind the dazzling veneer of the technological world. He meets a fellow Irishman, the mysterious John Conway, who is a skilled engineer and free diver capable of reaching extraordinary depths. When the ship is sent up the coast to repair a series of major underwater breaks, both men learn that the very cables they seek to fix carry the news that may cause their lives to unravel. So there you've got Twist. Heard him on an event, a library event, talking about this. And it was just so interesting because we don't really think about those underwater cables carrying the world's information. So I think just that makes this an interesting topic for a book. And that is a stunning cover, I will admit, in my favorite color. Next, we have Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, coming on April 1st. No April Fool about this one. There's no such thing as a perfect guy, but Xavier Rush comes disastrously close. Gorgeous veterinarian giving Greek god vibes, all while cuddling a tiny kitten? Immediate yes. That is until he opens his mouth and proves that even sculpted gods can say the absolute wrong thing. Of course, there's nothing Samantha loves more than proving someone like him wrong, unless, of course, he can admit he made a mistake. But after one incredible and seemingly endless date, Samantha is forced to admit the truth that her family's in crisis and any kind of relationship would be impossible. Samantha begs Xavier to forget her, to remember their night together as a perfect moment, as crushing as that may be. Only no amount of distance or time is enough to forget what's between them. So from Emily Henry, we hear, no one does funny, emotional, life-affirming stories quite like Abby Jimenez. Next, from Jennifer Chiavarini, we've got The World's Fair Quilt, also on April 1st. Sylvia Bergstrom Compson is contemplating the future of her beloved Elm Creek quilts. The Elm Creek Quilt Camp remains the most popular quilters retreat in the country, but unexpected financial difficulties have beset them, and the Bergstrom family's stately 19th century manor. Summer Sullivan, I love that name, a founding Elm Creek quilter, arrives to discuss an antique quilt that she wants to display at the Waterford Historical Society's quilt exhibit. When Sylvia and her sister Claudia were teenagers, they had entered a quilt in the Sears National Quilt Contest for the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago. Summer believes that their quilt would be perfect for the Historical Society's exhibit. Sylvia is hesitant to lend out the quilt, which has been stored in the attic for decades. As she retraces the quilt's story for Summer, she makes an unexpected discovery, one that restores some of her faith in this unique work of art and helps shine some light on a way forward for the Elm Creek quilts community. Sounds like a terrific book for anyone who enjoys crafting. Next, we've got some historical fiction. We start with The Antidote by Karen Russell. She is the best-selling author of Swamplandia. This is out this week. The Antidote opens on Black Sunday as a historic dust storm ravages the fictional town of Uz, Nebraska. But Uz is already collapsing, not just under the weight of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl drought, but beneath its own violent histories. Karen Russell's novel follows a prairie witch whose body serves as a bank vault for people's memories and secrets. A Polish wheat farmer who learns how quickly a hoarded blessing can become a curse. His orphan niece, a basketball star, and witch's apprentice in furious flight from her grief. A voluble scarecrow and a New Deal photographer whose time traveling camera threatens to reveal both the town's secrets and its fate. And Lauren Groff has said this is achingly gorgeous, as profound as it is wonderfully strange. And I think that nails from the description exactly what goes on. Next, we've got the Women on Platform 2, which is coming from Laura Anthony, out this week. It was one of our spring reading titles yesterday, and so we hope you had time to answer the contest that was up for 24 hours. So we start in Dublin in 1969. Maura has just married Dr. Christy Davenport, and they look forward to growing their family. But as her husband's vicious temper emerges, Maura worries that her home might never be safe for a child. Meanwhile, her close friend Bernie, a mother of three, learns the devastating news that if she conceives again, her health complications could prove fatal. Let's go to Dublin in 2023. A close call makes Florisi, no, I'm going to do this right, Swarse, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get that right, realize that she may never want to be a mother. Little does she know that only a few decades ago, a group of women made this option possible for her, and she's about to meet one of them. Amanda Jerd said, heartbreaking, powerful, and ultimately uplifting. So there you've got the Women on Platform 2. Next, we've got The Map to Paradise by Susan Meisner. With her name on the Hollywood blacklist and her life on hold, starlet Melanie Cole has little choice in company. There's her next door neighbor, Elwood, but the screenwriter's agoraphobia allows for just short chats through open windows. He's her sole confidant, though, as she and her housekeeper, Eva, an immigrant from war-torn Europe, rarely make conversation. Then, one early morning, Melanie and Eva spot Elwood's sister-in-law and caretaker, June, digging in his beloved rose garden. After that, they don't see Elwood at all anymore. Where could a man who never leaves the house possibly have gone? As they try to find something out of what has happened to him, unexpected secrets are revealed among all three women, leading to an alliance that seems the only way for any of them to hold on to what they can still call their own. But it's a fragile pact, and one little spark could send it up in smoke. So there you've got Susan Meisner's, she's the author of Only the Beautiful. Next, we've got The Paris Express by Emma Donoghue, out on March 18th. Based on an 1895 disaster that went down in history when it was captured in a series of surreal, extraordinary photographs, The Paris Express is set on a train packed with a fascinating cast of characters who hail from as close as Brittany and as far as Russia, Ireland, Algeria, Pennsylvania, and Cambodia. Members of Parliament hurry back to Paris to vote. A medical student suspects a girl may be dying. A secretary tries to convince her boss of the potential of moving pictures. Two of the train's crew build a life away from their wives. A young anarchist makes a terrifying plan, and much more, all happening on the Paris Express. Shelby Van Pelt said this is an edge-of-your-seat historical thriller. So there you go. Get ready to enjoy. Next, from Patty Callahan Henry, we have The Story She Left Behind, also on sale next week. In 1927, Clara Harrington's magical childhood shatters when her mother, renowned author Bronwyn Newcastle Fordham, disappears from the coast of South Carolina. Bronwyn stunned the world with a book written in an invented language that became a national sensation when she was just 12. Her departure leaves behind not only a devoted husband and heartbroken daughter, but also the hope of ever translating the sequel to her landmark work. By 1952, Clara is an illustrator raising her own daughter, Winnie. One day, a stranger named Charlie Jameson contacts her from London, claiming to have discovered a handwritten dictionary of her mother's lost language. The Jameson family's retreat, Clara must find the courage to uncover the truth about her mother and the story she left behind. And Ariel Walhorn said this is layered with magical storytelling, not to be missed. Next, we've got The River Knows Your Name by Kelly Mustian. It is coming on April 1st. For nearly 30 years, Nell has kept a childhood promise to never reveal what she and Evie found tucked inside a copy of Jane Eyre in their mother's bookcase. A record of Evie's birth, naming a stranger as her mother. But lately, Nell has been haunted by hazy memories of their early life in Mississippi, which their reclusive mother, Hazel, kept shrouded in secrecy. Evie recalls nothing before their home on Clay Mountain in North Carolina. But Nell remembers abrupt moves, odd accommodations, and the rainy night a man in a dark coat and a hat pulled low climbed their porch steps with a very little girl, Evie, and then left without her. In dual storylines, Nell, who is 42 in 1971, reaches into the past to uncover dangerous, long-buried secrets, and Becca, a young mother in the early 1930s, presses ahead, each moving towards 1934, a catastrophic year that will forever link them. Ash Davidson said, "Plumbs the depths of the human heart, wake up early and kept me up late." So woke me up early and kept me up late. So there you go. Next, we've got The Sirens, which is coming from Amelia Hart. It's one of our spring reading suggestions. Mark down April 1st. Contest will be going up about the book, and you will want to enter. Lucy awakens from a dream to find her hands around her ex-lover's throat. That's a good one. Horrified, she flees to her older sister's house on the Australian coast, hoping she can explain the strangely vivid nightmare that preceded the attack. But Jess is nowhere to be found. As Lucy awaits her return, the rumors surrounding Jess's strange small town start to emerge. Numerous men have gone missing at sea, spread over decades. A tiny baby was found inside a cave, and sailors tell of hearing women's cries on the waves. Desperate for answers, Lucy finds and begins to read her sister's adolescent diary. With breathtaking tale of female resistance and the bonds of sisterhood across space and time, The Sirens captures the power of dreams and the mystery and magic of the sea. And you probably recognize Amelia Hart as the author of Wayward. Now we've got some thrillers and mysteries. Chris Bajalian this week has The Jackal's Mistress out. It's Virginia in 1864. Libby Stedman's husband has been away for as long as she can barely conjure his voice up in dreams. While she longs for him in the night, fearing him dead in a Union prison camp, her days are spent running a grist mill with her teenage niece, a hired hand, and his wife. It's an uneasy life in the Shenandoah Valley, and Libby awakes every morning expecting to see her land a battlefield. And then she finds a gravely injured Union officer left for dead in a neighbor's house. Captain Jonathan Weybridge of the Vermont Brigade is her enemy, but he's also a human being, and Libby must make a terrible decision. Does she leave him to die alone, or does she risk treason and try to nurse him back to health? And if she succeeds, does she try to secretly bring him across Union lines, or she might negotiate a trade for news of her own husband? This is one of our word of mouth selections this week. This is one of the books you can win as a prize if you jump on Bookreporter on our word of mouth feature and tell us what you're reading this week. That's as simple as it is. You tell us what you're reading for our word of mouth section, and you're entered to win a copy, one of 3 copies of Jackal's Mistress. Next, we've got The Buffalo Hunter Hunter. Yeah, Hunter Hunter twice. That is correct. By Stephen Graham Jones, coming on March 18th. A diary written in 1912 by a Lutheran pastor is discovered within a wall. What it unveils is a slow massacre, a chain of events that go back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow. The Buffalo's Hunter Hunter is told in transcribed interviews by a Blackfeet named Goodstab, who shares the narrative of his particular life over a series of confessional visits. And this author, Stephen Graham Jones, is the best-selling author of The Only Good Indians. Next, we've got The Summer Guests by Tess Gerritsen. I have a copy of this. I am dying to get to read it because I really love this new series that she started. When former spy Maggie Bird retired to the seaside hamlet of Purity, Maine, she settled in for a quiet life with breathtaking views. But the enemies from her past soon threatened to destroy everything. Maggie survived thanks to her wits and her collective intelligence of the Martini Club, a circle of ex-CIA friends in her cocktail-sipping book club. Their handiwork, however, caught the attention of young police chief Joe Thibodeau. Now Joe and her neighborhood ex-spies have an uneasy alliance. After a teenager vanishes and Maggie's neighbors become the prime suspect, she joins the investigation, determined to prove her friend's innocence. But the girl's wealthy family pushes for an arrest. And when the authorities discover a long dead corpse in the nearby pond, the case becomes doubly complicated with unthinkable ties to long buried secrets. This is what you're calling her new Martini Club series. And what I really love about it is Tess came up with the idea because she realized there were a lot of people in her town that sort of had like no backstory, like what was going on with them. And she realized they were all ex-CIA. And it just was just this is like what the idea for writing a book. If all these people have been in the CIA, they've got all these great ideas, and what are they going to hunker down and do? Last book of this was a book reporter bets on selection. I'm looking forward to getting this one. As Lee Child said, Gerritsen is a born storyteller. Next, from Harlan Coben, we've got Nobody's Fool coming on March 25th. Sammy Kearse, a young college grad backpacking in Spain with friends, wakes up one morning covered in blood. There's a knife in his hands, and beside him is the lifeless body of his girlfriend, Anna. He doesn't know what happened. He screams, drown out his thoughts, and then he runs. 22 years later, Kearse, now a private investigator, is a new father, is working off his debts by doing low-level surveillance jobs and teaching wannabe sleuths at a night school in New York City. One evening, he recognizes a familiar face at the back of the classroom. It's unmistakably Anna. As soon as Kearse makes eye contact with her, she bolts. Kearse, there's no choice. He knows he must find this woman and solve the impossible mystery that has haunted his every waking moment since that terrible day. So there you've got Nobody's Fool. Also, Harlan's got two new shows on Netflix for those of you who enjoy watching program series on Netflix as much as I do, because everything drops at once and I don't have to wait a week in between. So follow what Harlan's doing. Fool Me Once is one of the Netflix dramas. Next, we've got Salt Water by Katie Hayes coming on March 25th. This is March's top library reads selection. In 1992, Sarah Lingate is found dead beyond the cliffs of Capri, leaving her 3-year-old daughter, Helen. Despite suspicions that old money Lingates are involved, Sarah's death is ruled an accident, and every year the family returns to prove it's true. But on the 30th anniversary of Sarah's death, the Lingates arrive at the villa to find a surprise waiting for them: the necklace Sarah was wearing the night she died. Haunted by the specter of that night, the legendary Wingate family unity is pushed to a breaking point, and Helen seizes the opportunity. Enlisting the help of Lorna Moreno, a family assistant, the two plot their escape from Helen's paranoid, insular family. But when Lorna disappears and the investigation into Sarah's death is reopened, Helen has to confront the fact that everyone who was on Capri 30 years ago remains a suspect. So Katie Hayes was the best-selling author of The Cloisters, and this looks like just the perfect book that we want to be looking at right now as we're thinking summer. I'm thinking summer. Skip spring, right to summer. This book, Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead, is coming out on March 25th. The unexpected death of her father, college student Jane Sharp, longs for distraction from her grief. She becomes obsessed with true crime, befriending armchair detectives who teach her how to hunt killers from afar. So when news of the shocking deaths of 3 college girls in Dauphine, Idaho, take the world by storm and sleuths everywhere race to solve the crimes, Jane and her friends are determined to beat them. But the case turns out to be stranger than anyone expected, and they begin to suspect that the killer may be smarter and more prolific than any they faced before. Told 1 year after the astounding events that concluded the case, when Jane has finally decided to break her silence about what really happened, she tells the true story of the Dauphine massacres, and what she has to confess will shock even the most seasoned true crime fans. So Ashley Winstead, one of her other books was In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife. And we all remember the killing of the girls in Idaho. So, like, yeah, okay, we'll sit on the edge chairs on this one. Okay, we've got The Fourth Girl by Wendy Corsi Staub. This is also one of our spring reading selections. On prom night, Carolyn Winterfield walked away from the ruins of an abandoned mansion called Haven Cliff and into the woods, never to be seen again. Only her three best friends know what really happened. On the 25th anniversary of that night, Midge, Kelly, and Talia reunite at Haven Cliff, now a gleaming architectural jewel. But they aren't alone. Someone's watching. Someone knows what really happened to Caroline and to the man who now lies dead a stone's throw from where she was last seen. Police Detective Midge knows she's dealing with a murder the moment she sees them clutched in the item clutched in his lifeless hand. Only three other people in the world would grasp its significance. That means Kelly and Talia are either involved in the danger because Caroline is long gone, or is she? So let's see what happens in this story. Like I said, spring reading selection. And I think that the word anniversary is the one that we should have picked, Tom, to see how many times it's mentioned because it's come up in more than one slide right now. One of these times, everybody, we are going to do this. We're going to say, which word did you hear during the presentation over and over again? And we're going to have prizes for that. We just never have time to do it, but that's our idea, lurking in the back of our heads. Next, we've got Heartwood by Amity Gage coming on April 1st. This was one of the book group speed dating titles when we did our promotion back in November. In the heart of Maine woods, an experienced Appalachian trail hiker goes missing. She's 42-year-old Valerie Gillis, who has vanished 200 miles from her final destination. Alone in the wilderness, Valerie pours her thoughts into fractured poetic letters to her mother as she battles the elements and struggles to keep hoping. At the heart of the investigation is Beverly, the determined Maine State game warden tasked with finding Valerie, who leads the search on the ground. Meanwhile, Lena, a 76-year-old bird watcher in a Connecticut retirement community, becomes an unexpected armchair detective. Roving between these compelling narratives, a puzzle emerges, intensifying the frantic search as Valerie's disappearance may not have been accidental. So Ellen Hildebrand said this is an absolute must read, and Jennifer Egan said it's impossible to put down. Just some memoirs, biographies, and other nonfiction. How to Love Better by Young Pueblo. It's out this week. Love enters our lives in many forms: friends, family, intimate partners, but all these relationships are deeply influenced by the love we have for ourselves. We see our relationships as opportunities to be fully present in our healing and growth, then we can transform and meet one another with compassion instead of judgment. How to Love Better, Young Pueblo examines all aspects of relationships, from the rose-colored early days when you may be hesitant to show your full self, to the challenges that can arise without clear communication, to dealing with heartbreak and healing as you close a chapter of your life. Ego and attachment can become barriers in a relationship, so the more self-aware you become, the more you can support both your partner and yourself. Next, we've got The Tell by Amy Griffin. This is Oprah's latest book club selection. It's out this week. For decades, Amy Griffin ran through the dirt roads of Amarillo, Texas, where she grew up, to the campus of the University of Virginia as a student athlete, on the streets of New York, where she built her adult life through marriage, motherhood, and a thriving career. To outsiders, it all looked in many ways perfect. But Amy was running from something, a secret she was keeping not only from her family and friends, but unconsciously from herself. You're here, but you're not here, her daughter said to her one night. Where are you, Mom? So begins Amy's quest to solve a mystery trapped in the deep recesses of her own memory, a journey that would take her to the burgeoning field of psychedelic therapy, to the limits of the judicial system, and ultimately home to the Texas Panhandle, where her story began. So there's The Tell by Amy Griffin. Next, we've got If You Were My Daughter by Marianne Richmond, a memory of healing and an unmothered heart. At 9 years old, Marianne Richmond's life was upended when she collapses on her kitchen floor with full body convulsions. Pinched nerve, said the ER doctor. Baffling explanation. But when one episode becomes many, it's clear something's wrong. Marianne desperately hopes for help and healing, but her emotionally unavailable mother, still reeling from her own past trauma, refuses medication on her behalf, preferring to try prayer and homeopathy. At age 18, a full body seizure in Marianne's dorm room leads her to a diagnosis, medication, and a neurological intervention. Physically, she feels fixed, but emotionally, healing proves more elusive. When her mother becomes ill, Marianne has a choice to make. Will she be present for the mother who she felt was rarely present for her? So there we've got If You Were My Daughter. Next, we've got The Invincible Spy, Churchill's Rockefeller Center spy ring and America's first secret agent of World War II. It's by Thomas Mayer, and what's really interesting is I went to college with him. We were both in journalism classes at Fordham, and I saw this in the presentation. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just so much fun. Ernest Cuneo played Ivy League football at Columbia University and was in the old Brooklyn Dodgers NFL franchise before becoming a city lawyer and brain trust aide to President Roosevelt. But his status as a spy remained a secret, hiding in plain sight. During this time, Cuneo began a close friendship with British spy Ian Fleming and helped inspire Fleming's James Bond novels. He also became a love affair with one of Churchill's agents at Rockefeller Center, Margaret Watson, a beautiful Canadian woman with a photographic memory ideal for spycraft. In one nighttime attack, Watson was nearly smothered to death by a Nazi assassin. Cuneo's transformation from gridiron athlete to high stakes intelligence go between and political influencer is one of the great untold stories of American espionage. He has remained invisible in the public eye until now. And speaking of people that I crossed paths with, we've got a memoir from Graydon Carter that is called When the Going Was Good, An Editor's Adventures During the Last Golden Age of Magazines. Graydon was at Condé Nast at the same time I was. He was the editor-in-chief of Vanity Fair while I was working at Mademoiselle. We overlapped for a short period of time. And when he was offered the editor-in-chief of Vanity Fair in 1992, he knew he faced an uphill battle: how to make the esteemed and long-established magazine his own. Not only was confronted with a staff that he perceived to be loyal to the previous regime, he arrived with only a few years after launching Spy magazine, which gloried in skewering the celebrated and powerful, the very people that Vanity Fair venerated. Curiosity, fearlessness, and a love of recent history and glamour that would come to define his storied career in magazines, Carter succeeded in endearing himself to his editors, contributors, and readers, as well as the many faces that would come to appear in Vanity Fair's pages. It's a lively recounting of how he made his mark of one of the most talented editors in the business. If anybody's been curious about magazines and the magazine world and how things work, it's a book you really will want to read because magazine world is nothing like this anymore. I mean, everything's online. It's all craziness. But when we were there, he has this one moment where he describes this wall in his office, and the wall had months at the top, and you would move the articles around of like, this doesn't work this month, we'll move it over here, we'll do this, we'll do that, this is what the lead story is going to be and everything. And it was just fascinating because that was how magazines came together. It was also a time before everything was electronic. And we would do things like there would be a pouch that would go to Chicago at night, and in the pouch to Chicago was the parts of the magazine that would be going to the printer. And somebody would take the pouch on a plane and bring it with them. It was just crazy times of the way everything came together. But he's also interesting about his role coming in after Tina Brown being there, working with Cy Newhouse, and working at a company that had so many magazines at the time. When I was there, I believe we'd gone from 5 to 15, and it went down considerably, like, after I left, including that Mademoiselle closed, I want to say 2001, but I'm not completely sure. I left in 1995. So there was this 3 years, and it's just fascinating. And I'm kind of like obsessed with this book simply because it was such a really good telling of how he pulled the whole thing together and how much work you had to do in order to make a magazine like that come out. Next, we've got Yoko by David Sheff, which coming on March 25th. John Lennon once described Yoko Ono as the world's most famous unknown artist. Everybody knows her name, but no one knows what she does. She has only been important to history insofar that she impacted Lenin, and she broke up the Beatles as far as everybody's concerned. Throughout her life, she has become a caricature, a curiosity, and often a villain. Inscrutable seductress, a manipulating con artist, and a counterwalking fraud. The Lennon Beatles saga is one of the greatest stories ever told, but Yoko's part has been missing, hidden in the Beatles' formidable shadow, further obscured by flagrant misogyny and racism. This definitive biography of Yoko Ono's life will change that, because in this book, she takes center stage. Very interesting. And you think about all the years that have gone by since Lennon was killed and what has happened with Yoko. Next, we've got Book Baby by Vicki Nygren, and this book is coming on April 1st. Starting in 1975, Vietnam's boat people, desperate families seeking freedom, fled the communist government and violence in their country any way they could, usually by boat across the South China Sea. Vicki and her family were among them, attacked at sea by pirates before reaching a refugee camp in Malaysia. Vicki's family survived on rations and waited months until they were sponsored to go to America. But deciding to leave and start a new life in a new country is half the story. Figuring out how to be American is the other. Boat Baby is Vicki's memoir of growing up in America with unconventional Vietnamese parents who didn't always know how to bridge cultural gaps. And I heard her speak about the book, and it's really so interesting because we think about people who came from Cuba, and we've run from people that, like, how did you come over? You came over from Europe. This was like leaving Vietnam and really trying to figure out what your life was going to be from there. Very, very interesting. It's one of those ones I would love to sit and read because she's an NBC News anchor and correspondent. To hear her story about what happened, fascinating. Here's some May titles to look forward to. We always let you look ahead. Franklin Bachman. How many people love Franklin Bachman? Man called Uwe. Okay, he's got my friends. It's coming on May 6th. Most people don't even notice them. Three tiny figures sitting at the end of a long pier in the corner of one of the most famous paintings in the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of the sea, but Louisa, an aspiring artist herself, knows otherwise, and she's determined to find out the story of these three enigmatic figures. 25 years earlier, in a distant seaside town, a group of teenagers find refuge from their bruising home lives by spending long summer days on an abandoned pier, telling silly jokes, sharing secrets, and committing small acts of rebellion. Out of that summer emerges a transcendent work of art, a painting that unexpectedly will be placed into 18-year-old Louisa's care. She embarks on a surprise-filled cross-country journey to learn how the painting came to be and to decide what to do with it. So there you've got the latest from Frederick Bachman. Next, from Isabel Allende, you have My Name is Amelia de Valle. San Francisco in 1866, an Irish nun, abandoned following a torrid relationship with a Chilean aristocrat, gives birth to a daughter named Amelia de Valle. Raised by a loving stepfather, Amelia grows into an independent thinker and self-sufficient young woman. To pursue her passion for writing, Amelia is willing to defy societal norms. At the age of 17, she begins to publish pulp fiction using a man's pen name. When these fictional worlds can no longer satisfy her sense of adventure, she turns to journalism, convincing an editor at the Daily Examiner to hire her. There she's paired with another talented reporter, Eric Whalen. As Amelia proves herself, her restlessness returns, so an opportunity arises to cover a brewing civil war in Chile. She seizes it, as does Eric, and while there, she meets her estranged father and delves into the violent confrontation in the country where her roots lie. You know her as the author of The House of the Spirits. Something from Isabel Allende is always a book that's deep in thought and deep in writing. Next, we've got The River is Waiting by Wally Lamb, also coming on May 6th. Corby Ledbetter is a struggling. New fatherhood, the loss of his job, and a growing secret addiction have thrown his marriage to his beloved Emily into a tailspin. That's before he causes the tragedy that tears the family apart. Sentenced to prison, Corby struggles to survive life on the inside, where he bears witness to frightful acts of brutality, but also experiences small acts of kindness, an elemental kinship with a prison librarian who sees his light and some of his fellow offenders, including a tender-hearted cellmate and a troubled teen desperate for a role model. Buoyed by them and by his mother's enduring faith in him, Corby begins to transcend the boundaries of confinement, sustained by his hope that mercy and reconciliation might still be possible. What's really interesting about this is Wally spent a lot of time in prisons helping people who live there write and learn how to write their stories and what goes on. And I also understand that there is something in this book that talks that brings out a lot of what was going in his personal life as well. Andre Buse said, "I could not put this down and predict that you won't be able to either." So there's The River is Waiting. Next, we've got The Dark Maestro by Brendan Slocum. How many people remember The Violin Conspiracy, his first novel? It was the second one in between. I'm spacing on what the title was, but he is absolutely a master at bringing music into thrillers. Curtis Wilson is a cello prodigy growing up in Southeast DC projects with a drug dealer for a father. But through determination and talent and the loving support of his father's girlfriend, Larissa, Curtis rises to unimagined heights in the classical music world. And then suddenly, his life disintegrates. His father, Zippy, turns state's evidence, implicating his old bosses. And now the family must enter the Witness Protection Program if they want to survive. This means Curtis must give up the very thing he loves the most, sharing his extraordinary music with the world. When Zippy's bosses prove too elusive for law enforcement, Curtis, Zippy, and Larissa realize that their only chance for survival is to take on the criminals themselves. They must create new identities and draw on their long, unique talents, including Curtis's musical ability, to after people who want them dead. So there we got The Dark Maestro. Next, from Carl Hyacin, we've got Fever Beach. The afternoon of September 1st, dishwater, gray and rainy, a man named Dale Figo picks up a hitchhiker on Gus Grissom Boulevard in Tangelo Shores, Florida. The hitchhiker, who reminded Figo of Danny DeVito, asks for a lift to the interstate. Figo says, "I'll take you there after I'm finishing an errand." And thus begins Fever Beach, with an errand that leads in pure Carl Hyacin style into the depths of Florida, its most Floridian, a sun-soaked bastion of right-wing extremism, white power, greed, and corruption. So there you go, Carl Hyacin. Take us to Florida. Next, we've got Speak to Me of Home by Janine Cummins. She is the #1 best-selling author of American Dirt. I'm dying to read this one. It's coming on May 13th. On her wedding day in San Juan, Puerto Rico in 1968, Rafaela Acuna de Dubois has a mild misgivings, but she marries Peter Brennan Jr. anyway in a blaze of romantic optimism. She has no way of knowing how dramatically her life will change when she uproots her young family to start over in the American Midwest, unleashing a fleet of disappointments. In the 1980s, against the backdrop of her mother's isolation in St. Louis, Missouri, Rafaela's daughter, Ruth, wants only to belong. Eager to fit in, Ruth lets go of her language, habits, and childhood memories of Puerto Rico. It's not until decades later, when Ruth's own daughter, Daisy, returns to San Juan, that their mother and grandmother begin to truly reflect on the choices that they have made that come to define their lives. So there we've got Speak to Me of Home. Beautiful cover. Next, we've got The Doorman by Chris Pavoni. This is getting a lot of buzz, everybody. It's a near-perfect blend of clever plotting, wicked social commentary, irresistible setting, truly memorable characters, and old-fashioned page-turning fun, says John Grisham. Coming on May 20th. Chicky Diaz is everybody's favorite doorman at the Bohemia, the most famous apartment and house in the world, home of celebrities, financiers, and New York's cultural elite. But gathered in the Bohemia's bowels, the building's almost entirely Black and Hispanic working class staff is taking in the news that just a few miles uptown, a Black man has been killed by the police, leading to a demonstration, a counter demonstration, and a long night of violence across the Tinderbox City. Chicky changes into his uniform for tonight's shift. He finds himself breaking a cardinal rule of the job. Tonight he'll be carrying a gun, bought only hours earlier, but before he knew of the pandemonium taking over the city. Chicky knows there's more going on in his patch of sidewalk in front of the Bohemia than anyone is aware of. And it's really interesting because Chris lives in the Dakota. Dakota, which is where John Lennon lived, Dakota that has this building outside it. The Dakota also comes up in Graydon Carter's book. So here we've got the doorman. This sounds like it's going to be terrific. I loved Two Nights in Lisbon. Next, we've got The Girls of Good Fortune by Christina McMorris. This is taking place in Oregon in 1888. Amidst the subterranean labyrinth of Portland's notorious Shanghai tunnels, a woman awakens in an underground cell, drugged and disguised. Celia soon realizes she is a Shanghaied victim on the urge of being shipped off as forced labor. Though well accustomed to adapting for survival, being half Chinese, passing as white during an era fraught with anti-Chinese sentiment, she fears that far more than her own fate hangs in the balance. As she pieces together the twisting path that led to her abduction, from serving as a maid for the family of a dubious mayor, becoming entwined in the case of a gold miners' massacre, revelations emerge of a child left in peril. Desperate, Celia must find a way to escape and return to a place where unearthed secrets can prove deadlier than the dark recesses of Chinatown. Jean Kwok said that this is a captivating blend of intrigue and heart, a powerful testament to hope. So you also know Christina as the best-selling author of Sold on a Monday. Next, from Catherine Center, we've got The Love Haters, coming on May 20th. Katie Vaughn has been burned by love in the past, and now she must be lighting her career on fire. She has two choices: wait to get laid off from her job as a video producer, or at her co-worker Cole's request, take a career-making gig profiling Tom Hutchison, a Coast Guard rescue swimmer in Key West. The catch: Katie's not exactly qualified. She can't swim, but pretends she can. Plus, Cole and Hutch are brothers, and they don't get along. As Katie gets entangled with Hutch, the most scientifically good-looking man she's ever seen, but maybe a bit of a love hater, along with his colorful Aunt Rue and his rescue Dane, she gets trapped in a lie or two. Swim lessons, helicopter fights, conga lines, drinking contests, hurricanes, and stolen kisses ensue, along with a chance to tell the truth, face old fears, and be truly brave at last. And I bet the brave is when she goes in the water to swim. Next, we've got Maya Blue. It is coming out on May 20th from Brenda Coffey. There's currently a contest that we'll get into in a couple of seconds for this book on our website. 21, Brenda Coffey surrendered herself to her marriage and became a woman to do anything her charismatic and powerful older husband, Philip Ray, wanted. Regardless of whether it was dangerous, adventurous, sexual, or legal, she wanted to be the one woman he couldn't live without. Brenda and Philip's life together was a fairy tale until it wasn't. Until Philip, the founder of two high-profile, groundbreaking public companies, began making real cocaine in their basement and became addicted. So the big six tobacco companies threatened their wives for creating the first smokeless cigarette. Brenda coined the term vape and vaping, and brutal Guatemalan military commandos forced her into a jungle at gunpoint. Okay, guys, this sounds like a really crazy life. It's a memoir of survival. We'll have a little bit more on this in a second. Then from Linwood Barclay, always one of our favorites, we've got Whistle. Anybody who follows Linwood on social media knows that the one thing that Linwood really enjoys besides writing, his marriage, his children, and his grandchild are model trains. And he has a model train exhibit in part of his house that is absolutely incredible. He's constantly putting new parts of it together, and he's also putting pictures of it online. And he goes into all kinds of details. So decided to do a different kind of book. And this is terrific, says Stephen King. Annie Blunt has had an unimaginably terrible year. First, her husband was killed in a tragic hit-and-run accident. And then one of the children's books she built her writing and illustrating career on ignited a major scandal. Desperate for a fresh start, she moves on with her son and Charlie to a charming small town in upstate New York where they can begin to heal. But Annie's year is about to get worse. You know, in Linwood's hands, that's going to happen, folks. Bored and lonely in their isolated new surroundings, Charlie is thrilled when he finds a forgotten train set and a locked shed on their property. But there's something unsettling about his new toy. Strange sounds awake Annie in the night. She could swear she hears a train, but there isn't an active train track for miles, and bizarre things start happening in the neighborhood. And worse, Annie can't seem to stop drawing a disturbing new character that has no place in a children's book. It's all about Whistle, folks. in Linwood Barclay's hands, you know it's going to be great storytelling. Next, we've got the Martha Vineyard Beach and Book Club from Martha Hall Kelly. You know her as the best-selling author of Lilac Girls. It's coming on May 27th. 34-year-old Mary Starwood is still grieving after her mother's death as she travels to the storied island of Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts. She's come all the way from California with nothing but a name on a piece of paper. Elizabeth Devereux, the famous but reclusive vineyard painter. When Mary makes it to Miss Devereux's stunning waterfront farm under the guise of taking a painting class with her, Miss Devereux begins to tell her the story of the Smith sisters who once lived there. As the tale unfolds, Mary is shocked to learn her relationship to this island runs deeper than she ever thought possible. Okay, guys, there is your Memorial Day weekend kickoff summer book. There you go. Next, from Stephen King, we have Never Flinch, coming on May 27th. When the Buckeye City Police Department receives a disturbing letter from a person threatening to kill 13 innocents and one guilty in an act of atonement for the needless death of an innocent man, Detective Izzy Janes has no idea what to think. Are 14 citizens about to be slaughtered in an unhinged act of retribution? As the investigation unfolds, Izzy realizes that the letter writer is deadly serious and she turns to her friend Holly Gibney for help. Meanwhile, controversial and unspoken women's rights activist Kate McKay is embarking on a multi-state lecture tour. Someone who vehemently opposes Kate's message of female empowerment is targeting her and disrupting her events. First, no one's hurt, but the stalker grows bolder, and Holly is hired to be Kate's bodyguard. A challenging task with a headstrong employer and a determined adversary driven by wrath and his belief in his own righteousness. So there you've got Never Flinch. Can you see the movie? I can. Okay, here are notable paperback releases for all of those who say I'm waiting for the paperback. Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. The Hazelborn Ladies Motorcycle and Flying Club by Helen Simonson. The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. Leaving by Rosanna Robinson, which was a Bets-On selection last year. Camino Ghosts by John Grisham. Daughter of Mine by Megan Miranda, another Bets-On selection. Finding Margaret Fuller by Alison Pataki. Lucky by James Smiley. The Wives by Simone Garindo, another Bets-On selection. Also interviewed her, and I also interviewed Megan Miranda. Anthony Horowitz, Close to Death. Lee Bardugo, The Familiar. And Ruth Ware, One Perfect Couple. So there you go. Those are March paperbacks. Okay, I've got some early Bets-On selections. And we usually don't do this till later on in the year, but these are books I've loved, so I want to make sure that you take note of The Note, The Stolen Queen, More or Less Maddie, Beautiful Ugly, What Happened to the McCraes, Dear Sister, Presumed Guilty, Good Dirt, The Oligarch's Daughter, Queens of Crime, and a couple that are upcoming, Seeking Shelter, where I'll also be interviewing Jeff Hobbs, Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall, and The Lost Baker of Vienna, which is not coming until August, but I want you to write it down right now, from Sharon Kurtzman. It is absolutely terrific. I read it last weekend. So that's not coming to August, but we're doing upcoming Bets-On selections as well. So you can read with me throughout the year. And I've been trying to pick a couple of books that, besides the fiction that I normally talk about, a couple of books that deal with issues that I think are interesting. And that would be Dear Sister, where we talk about domestic violence, and Seeking Shelter, where we talk about the problem of homelessness in America today. And we see it through a young mother's eyes who is trying to find a home for her family. And it is so well done because I feel like I understand what is happening in the system a little bit more after reading this. And you know, I love Broken Country that kept me up till 2:45 in the morning a couple weeks ago. Okay, so who have I talked to recently? Charmaine Wilkerson about Good Dirt, Marie Benedict about the Queens of Crime, and Joe Finder about the Oligarch's Daughter. Every conversation was incredibly fun, so I hope you go and check those out. So Maya Blue, remember I mentioned this before, the drug runner, the husband that finds cocaine after being at the successful companies? Can win one of 25 advance copies of this book and give us your feedback on it. Enter on Bookreporter by Friday, March 21st, which is a week from Friday at noon Eastern time. Book comes out in May. I think the story I have to read this and just see like this memoir of survival. So there you go. And our spring reading contest continue. The next one will be happening next. I'm just trying to get something to move on the screen. Give me 1 second. Next, the wait, March 14th. When's March 14th? Wait. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. This is the word of mouth contest. Wait, I went ahead a slide. I'm sorry. The next contest will be up on March 18th, and the prize will be Daughter of Mine by Megan Miranda, which is just out in paperback. Yeah, somehow I hit ahead and I missed that. But these here we've got, 7 books that you want to be taking a look at this spring. And our word of mouth contest, you can win Blood Moon by Sandra Brown, which we reviewed last week, and Chris Brzezalian's The Jackal's Mistress, which we talked about earlier today. And you need to enter this contest. I'm just trying to get this thing to move. There's this little bar that comes up on the bottom of the screen. It makes me cuckoo because I can't see behind it. By March 14th at noon, which is Friday. Friday is March 14th. Okay, so we're doing a special Bookaccino Live Spring Preview Evening event for all the people who work during the day and can't get to this presentation. We're thinking of them, and you could join as well. It's a preview of books releasing this spring that we think you might enjoy reading. We're going to do some different from what we've done the last couple of weeks, kind of change it up. It's next Wednesday, March 19th at 8 o'clock at night. You can sign up on Bookreporter and reading group guides. We hope you join us and we hope you bring friends, bring lots of people that are stuck at their desks all day, are not able to do this during the day, because we really enjoy doing these evening presentations as well. And the same thing's going to happen. Those who attend live will be eligible to win one of 3 copies of books. Okay, so there you go. Next Wednesday night. And the following Wednesday night, since clearly Tom Donadio and I love spending Wednesday nights with you, Anna Quinlan will be joining us to talk about After Annie, New York Times bestseller. That's now available in paperback. Signups available on Bookreporter and Reading Group Guides. Something to think about with this is if you have a question for Anna that you'd like to answer, make sure you get it to me and let me know if you want to appear on screen to talk to her about it. And also at the same time, if you could let me know what city and state you're from. If you don't want to be on camera, I'll ask the question for you. I've been known to be kind of adept at doing that. But we also would love if you want to join us as well. So do let us know. Our next Bookaccino Live book preview event is going to be an afternoon event. It's going to be a preview of books from April 8th through May 6th, and the peak ahead of June, which means we will be halfway through the year, which is incredibly crazy to me that we'll be doing that. It's going to be on Wednesday, April 9th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And as always, sign up is available on Bookreporter and readinggroupguides.com. And I thank everybody for joining us today, and hope to see you again for our evening events, our Wednesday night evening events, or in April when you join us again. Thanks so much, everybody.